Those decisions that can never be undone are always the hardest to make. If it can be avoided, would it not make sense to do so? If the permanent, harsh decision of the death penalty can be replaced with life in prison without parole, should it be? It all depends on the opinion if you believe that the death penalty is morally justified, if the punishment that life without parole is harsher, and if you take into account the cost of both. We tend to base our laws and beliefs on our morals that we get from our Constitution that our country was built on. The Constitution is there not to give us a rule book, but to keep us within certain guidelines to ensure we stay essentially the same free moral country we were back when the Constitution was written. We pride ourselves on being better than most, or in many opinions, all other countries. For the most part, we are better all around than when it comes to equality between all the citizens, freedom to be yourself, and to receive fair chance in the justice system than other countries. But when we step across over to not just punishing the offenders, but sentencing them to death, it gives the United States a bad image. The United States is one of the few countries that still use the death penalty against offenders, and a lot of other countries look down on us for doing that. We had lost death sentencing many years ago, and then when we realized how many innocent people were being sent to death row and how immoral it was. Yet we still decided to revive the death penalty, thinking this time it would follow through better. Unfortunately, it has done pretty much as bad as it's done before. Considering we stand proud of the fact that we're supposed to be such an upright, moral country, it does not seem to make sense that we find it okay to take someone's life. One of the main reasons we do this is not because we feel it to be only not one of the main reasons we do this is not because we feel it to be the only punishment to fit the extreme offenders, but because of our selfish revenge we feel to give to those awful offenders. Life in prison would be just as harsh of a sentence, if not harsher, but we thrive off the idea of being able to watch that person's life be ended rather than being locked away, where we can never truly see their suffering and punishment being followed through. We want to watch it. When getting sentenced life in prison, it takes away all civil liberties and freedoms. You are forced to eat, sleep, and shower on the prison's time. Life is no longer belongs to the inmate, but to prisons. Also, the extreme offenders that would normally get the death penalty would most likely be in isolation. Which seems worse? Getting put to death or sitting alone in a cell, being told what to do and when to do it, having no one to talk to. It may not be moral right to take a life, but punishing inmates by taking away all freedoms seems like a legit solution and alternative. And when they're put in isolation, it's even worse to have no human contact. Just imagine, no human contact. Also, if new evidence ever forms that the person is innocent, things can be reversed. With the death penalty, it can't. It may seem rare where someone is falsely accused and wouldn't be able to be set free, but it can happen. Yet, if they were put to death, it cannot be fixed to them, and especially not their family. So is it worth putting many harsh offenders to death if even one or two innocent ones get killed? Some may say yes, but our justice system is supposed to be fair and to all and make as little mistakes as possible. The United States is known for having one of the best justice systems, so having the death penalty kind of corrupts that a little. Sentencing an innocent person to death is a mistake that can be avoided, so why take the chance when it does not have to be taken? Another downside to the death penalty is the cost. Many people that are pro-death penalty think it saves them bunches of money. They think about how much money we spend on clothing, housing and feeding inmates for the life of prison, then they just take into account the money for the last meal and the lethal injection of the death penalty, then thinking, hey, sounds way cheaper. But they tend to overlook the outrageous amount of extra court dates it takes to give the death penalty. And that costs a lot of money to pay those extra judges, extra lawyers, extra jurors. While some may try to argue that it would still be cheaper to go those extra court dates than take care of the inmates their whole life, they're sadly mistaken. Deciding to give an offender the death penalty takes multiple trials and even more appeals. That adds up to be ridiculously more expensive than life and parole. For example, in Florida, it costs about $51 million more every year to sentence someone to death for them to give them life without parole. In California, it's a bit more extreme, by spending $114 million more a year for the death penalty instead of life without parole. When a country is under financial stress the way ours is, it seems crazy to waste our money on putting offenders to death. Yet, spending extra millions of dollars to put people to death when it can be substituted for life without parole seems like what many people either do not care or do not realize they are doing. Our citizens have a right to be fully informed of the extra cost of the death penalty and how much money that can be saved by doing things way better that could actually help our country. We could use it to actually help the people who need it, like paying for city jobs or using it to rehabilitate offenders instead of sending them to jail. So it looks better on a resume when they're trying to get a job once they get out of prison. That way they're less likely to go back to prison and possibly face the future death sentence. Because usually when you go to jail, there's like this cycle of jailing that you do, and it's very rare, or not really rare, but it happens very often for people to just go in and out of jail because it's so hard to get back into the economy once you've gone. It is a decision of the U.S. citizens to whether the death sentence should stay intact or be put to death itself. It still all depends on the opinion if you believe the death penalty is morally justified, if it's a better punishment than life without parole, and if you take into account the cost. The key is to remember that death is a decision that cannot be undone and affects a lot more people than the one being put to death. We should start acting more like a moral country the way we claim to be, and cut some unnecessary money spending by putting the death penalty to death again once and for all.